I'm getting low on fuel, and probably at that point should have declared an emergency. I've been a private pilot since 2016, and my dad and I were looking to buy a Grumman Tiger. He actually owned one in the 70s and lost it to an unfortunate accident. So he started picking back up an interest in GA, and he wanted to get a Grumman Tiger again. So I reached out on Facebook in a Grumman Tiger Facebook group, and I said, hey, I'm interested in buying one, and a gentleman reached out to me that happened to be in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So started looking into it. It looked like a good deal. The only downside was I was going to have to fly out to Puerto Rico to put my hands on it and to fly it and to conduct a pre-buy and then get it back to Texas. So the route getting home, if I bought it, the route getting home was San Juan, Puerto Rico, making some fuel stops along the way in the Caribbean to Fort Lauderdale, and then across the United States from Fort Lauderdale to Dallas, Texas, where I'm based. And the story went, got all the paperwork, kind of learned about the process of flying outside U.S. border, having to land in a Caribbean island. I'll tell you the most exciting flight that I've ever had, and I've got about 1,150 hours right now, is departing San Juan, Puerto Rico, flying along the coast on an IFR flight plan, and then turning away from the island and seeing nothing but aqua blue water underneath me as far as the eye could see. I was single pilot, no autopilot in the airplane, so nobody else in the airplane with me, all alone with 900 miles plus to go across blue water. And that experience right there, I felt like I was on the far side of the moon. Some of the most beautiful pictures and the most beautiful video that I've ever taken. Definitely thankful for 5 Hour Energy. I took the Garmin Insight, not a plug for Garmin Insight, but this is the Insight Mini 2. The InReach it uses satellite service, so I was able to text via my phone. And made the journey from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Providenciales, Turks and Caicos. That was about a 3.5 hour flight. Landed there. The descent and the approach to land there was absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous white sand, beautiful turquoise water. Never seen anything like this before flying around in North Texas. Got gas, used the facilities, did the paperwork, got back in the airplane, and departed for another 2.5 hours to Exuma, Bahamas, to go through the same process so I could get gas and then proceed on home. I had a window of time for U.S. Customs to get back to get into Fort Lauderdale by 5 p.m. Apparently they keep bankers hours there. And I barely made it. When you're in the islands, when you're flying around in the islands, you're on island time, man. Nobody gets in a hurry. You want to get gas and get out of there, budget an hour and a half. Yeah, I budgeted about 30 minutes. I was completely off. But flying around 6,000, 8,000 feet, nice, beautiful clouds, beautiful blue water, was probably one of the most exciting flights that I've ever taken. And one of the things people ask me is, hey, were you scared at all flying over the water? And well, of course I was. When I turned away from the island, I had a heart rate monitor on my finger, and my heart was pumping pretty hard. But I talked to myself and had this conversation where I said, I've flown over tall piney woods in East Texas. I've flown over alligator-infested water in Florida. Maybe going down in nice warm water with a raft isn't so bad compared to what it would be like to be stranded in the middle of a swamp with alligators and tall trees. So put that out of my mind and just listened to music and ate my snacks and just kept going. 950 miles. It was about an 8-hour adventure from point to point with stops in between. And I wasn't done there. I have some friends that live in Palm Coast, which is just up the East Coast in Florida, another couple of hours. So once I got through customs at Fort Lauderdale Executive, taxied out and took off and flew another 2 hours to Florida. Landed at Palm Coast and bed down for the night with my best friend from college. And woke up the next morning and tried to make it home to Texas. And that's where things got a little interesting. I was watching the weather to arrive back in Texas. This was all happening in December, and it was getting close to Christmas, and I'd been in Puerto Rico for 2 weeks waiting on the FAA to finish registration paperwork. So oddly enough, I probably could have been there a week and been done, but the FAA requires that you have permanent registration in the airplane in order to be legal. You can't fly on temporary registration. I used their product called Flywire, and it took 4.5 days to get the registration back. Meanwhile, I'm watching the weather in Dallas, and I'm watching the weather in Florida, and all along the way. And it started to not look good in Dallas. I was like, man, I want to get home. Get there itis. Took off from Flagler Field, Palm Coast, Florida, for going to make a fuel stop somewhere in Mississippi. It's going to be about an 8-hour day. The airplane's equipped with, the Grumman Tiger does about 130 knots. It's equipped with a Garmin GTN 650 and a G5 that's not vacuum based, but the DG is vacuum based, so it has a traditional DG in it. And I'm above a layer, above the clouds, and weather's starting to change where I was going, so I chose an alternate and then chose another alternate, which ended up being Meridian, Mississippi. And at about 6,000 feet, I get cleared down into the clouds, and I'm told, expect the RNAV 22 into Meridian. Okay, great. So before I got down in the clouds, I briefed the approach, loaded it in the box. And I have no autopilot to be able to delegate flying, so I can read and sort of brief myself. About the time I look down and try to make an adjustment to the DG, and it spins like Wheel of Fortune. And I went, oh no, look at my vacuum pump. Vacuum pump gauge 0. So my vacuum pump had quit above the clouds. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm frustrated, and descended down into the clouds. And then I'm told, expect the ILS 19. Well, I had already loaded everything for the RNAV 22. I'm getting low on fuel, and probably at that point should have declared an emergency because I was low on fuel, I was tired, and I didn't have the physical ability to brief a new approach while I'm hand flying, holding the airplane in IMC, just trying to keep the airplane on route, on an assigned heading and assigned altitude, and trying to keep the airplane with the greasy side down. Finally broke out of the clouds, 1,000 feet over the runway. I looked down, well, there's the runway, and elected to do a circle to land, and landed on runway 22, and everything was fine. And that whole flight from start to finish, from flying over the water, flying over clouds, having a vacuum pump fail on me, taught me a lot about being resilient and being prepared. A really great instructor out there on the internet talks about that an emergency is really not an emergency if you're prepared. It's just an adverse situation. And I had done a lot of preparation. The one thing I wasn't prepared for was just how tired I would be. And that's probably the greatest lesson I took away from that. Beautiful views, but I'm definitely not immune to get there-itis. Definitely not immune to the same things that other pilots are as well. Believing I'm a better pilot than I am. Yeah, I'm a great pilot when I'm rested and I'm not hungry and I'm not frustrated. I don't have to use the facilities. That 1,950-mile journey, single engine, piston, no autopilot, in an unfamiliar airframe with unfamiliar avionics was probably the most challenging flight that I've ever undertaken. It's a very interesting thing to teach, as I'm a ground instructor, and so it's a very interesting thing to teach a scenario. Okay, get there-itis is one of the, it's a form of a hazardous attitude, right? It's one of the things that lead us to make bad decisions. But here was a situation where it actually happened. I'm in the air. I'd been away from home for 2 weeks. I was tired of living in a hotel. Tired of eating food in an environment where I'm not comfortable. I'm not feeling good about that. I'm not getting good rest. I want to get home. It's getting close to Christmas time. My family's been waiting on me to get home. They're excited. Weather's starting to deteriorate at home. The forecast is starting to get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And we have ADSB. We have weather products in the airplane that can tell us what's happening. But there's a point at which it gets so bad that it's probably not a good idea to try to get in. So I was looking at the forecast in Dallas, and it was like 2 full days of low IFR and rain and thunderstorms. So I hurried into Meridian, Mississippi, And I stayed there for 2 nights, rested up, got the vacuum pump fixed. My right brake failed on me. As I'm taxiing off the runway, the right brake pedal went to the floor. Thankfully, that didn't cause a problem. But the scenario where you've been away for a while and you want to get home and you're tired, and you want to be in your own bed and you want to see your own family and you want to resume life, your usual routine. What I learned there is don't be quite so attached to your own plans that you push yourself into a situation where the outcome's not going to be all that good. Because as soon as you get tired, as soon as you get frustrated, as soon as you get hungry, your abilities deteriorate quickly. The one thing I didn't do was I should have declared an emergency. I should have taken control of the situation. I should have said, no, I'm going to take the RNAV 22. No, I'm low on fuel. I can't vector out that far. I'm going to run out of gas. My cognitive abilities were definitely deteriorated. My hand flying abilities were definitely deteriorated. Thankfully, it worked out. I landed and I still had legal fuel reserves, but I didn't know because it was an unfamiliar airplane. And the one thing I would take away from all that is, have a good plan, but then have a plan B and have a plan C and be willing to pivot to plan D. If you do that and you give yourself an out, there's a good chance that you'll survive even a situation that deteriorates beyond what you're comfortable with.